In today's show, we're going to talk about PowerApps attachments and using them with Azure Blob Storage. So no, we're not going to talk about the attachments control for the SharePoint stuff. We're going to talk about using Azure Blob Storage to store attachments for things like expense reports and purchase orders and any other place we want to have one-to-many relationships with these attachments. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the expense report app we built in the previous video, and we're going to expand upon that by attaching receipts. And we're going to store those in Azure Blob Storage. We're going to connect in SQL, SharePoint. We're going to try and bring the whole story together for a really fun video. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. In today's show, we're going to talk about PowerApps attachments. So not the attachments control that works with SharePoint and CDS. We're not going to go down that road. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about attachments where you want to attach files to things like expense reports, purchasing apps, inspection apps, safety apps, things where you need to attach one-to-many images to a file or to a record, and you might be storing that information out in SharePoint. You might be storing it in SQL, CDS. You might be storing it who knows where. But so what we're going to do is we're going to look at this very common request because honestly, in the last 2 weeks, I've had about 5 different people have me explain it to them. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a video instead of repeating myself over and over and over again. So that's what we're going to dive into. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to take the expense report that we built in a previous video. And so link's somewhere on the screen right now if you haven't watched that one. But we're going to take that existing expense report app and we're going to bolt into it attachments to have a little bit of fun. Also, it's good news is this is like my 5th time doing this video because somebody named Logitech keeps messing up their software, which messes up the recording. So I keep throwing away videos, but I'm not throwing this one away. You will see this one no matter what. So anyway, let's jump over to my desktop, take a look and see what we think. Okay, so over here on my desktop, I thought the first thing we would do is just take a quick run through of the existing app and show you the functionality we're about to build so you can get really excited for what we're going to do. All right, so we're going to create new expense over here. You can see that we've got our typical stuff, Logitech makes me angry. That's the name of our expense report. It's a weird expense report. Type of expense, hardware. We're going to buy a new camera, not a Mew, right? A new camera. And expense cost is 123 because cameras are expensive. We'll say save. So our expense report app, right? It does its thing. But now we have this new button over here. Tap to click or add an attachment. So we're going to click on this. And when this little guy pops up, we're now going to say, all right, well, let's grab this Chewy says good job image, say open. And after a second, it gets put out in Azure Blob Storage. Notice here we can delete it if we needed to, but we'll say save. So that will write the master record off to its home, the child items off to where they go, and then the attachments where they go. Whoop, everything is done. And so then now if we go here to view and edit expenses, and we scroll all the way to the bottom, oh, there's Logitech makes me angry. There's a new camera. Good job, Kiwi. Woo, 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 woo. We have made an expense report with attachments. I mean, I attached a GIF because I'm a dork, but you get the idea. So, all right. So that's what we're about to build, and it's going to take a little bit of time. So let's just dive over there and attack it. So we'll switch over here to this app. So this is an app, right? You can see that currently none of that functionality is here. Save as, it's my friend. So let's go right here and say, okay. Oh, let's zoom out a little bit. There we go. So in here, what we need to do, I think first things first is let's attach the file, right? So I think that's the first piece of it. And so in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to use the media and then the add picture control. Now the control is called add picture, but in reality, it should really say attach anything you want. Because when you click on this button, let's just hit play and click on the button real quick. So you only get image files, but notice down here, some people have caught this before. Down here, instead of image files, we have all files. And so then now I could attach a PDF or an Excel file or any other type of receipt. And this is the experience with a Chrome browser. If you use a different browser, you might see different options show up. And if you do it on a mobile device, like when I do it on my iPhone, I get a different experience. It's like, hey, do you want to use an existing file, use a photo, or take your own picture, right? So the experience is going to be a little bit different with this control depending on what device you're using it for. So important just to note as you're testing and making sure it does what you want. Okay, so when you use this control, it comes with 2 pieces. It comes with a button and a uploaded image, which is an image control to show what you just attached. We don't want to do that, so we're just going to delete that portion. That will not hurt anything. And then this is really just a button, but it's not, it's kind of a little different. You don't get all the same flexibility. So we're going to just do a little light branding real quick just to make sure that we at least understand kind of what's going on. So there's blue there, and then we'll set the color to red. Doom. And so, not red, white, duh. It's Monday morning, so don't make fun of me. So there you go. So we can kind of do that, and then we'll just kind of resize it up here. And so it looks mostly like a button. Now, I've done this for customers before, and with a little bit of elbow grease, you can make it look a lot more like a button. So I could make it the same colors as the other one, use the same fonts, that type of stuff. The only thing it can't do is it can't do the rounded corners. So if that really bothers you, you might have to find a different way to do rounded corners. Anyway, so then you can see it says tap or click to add a picture, but we want to make this a little more friendly. So there is a text property, just as you'd expect. And so we're just going to change this to say, add your receipt. Like so. There we go. Okay, so without a lot of work, we've got a button that will grab our piece. And so now that we can grab the information from the user, we need to send it off to Azure Blob Storage. So to do that, we're going to go over here to View and then Data Sources. And then we're going to click Add a Data Source. And then down here, we've got Azure Blob Storage. Boom. So now we have Azure Blob Storage. And if you haven't used Azure Blob Storage, I have an intro video for that also somewhere on the screen or in the description, somewhere on the page. So you can go watch that video. I'm not going to go through the mechanics of how I got all that set up today because there's a separate video on that. So there's Azure Blob Storage. Boom. We're looking good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come back to this one and we're going to say, all right, when they click on this, what I want to do is I want to take advantage of on select. So when they press the button, we're going to need to do some things. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to save the file straight off to Azure Blob Storage. So I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say set var Azure file. And we're going to say Azure Blob Storage, Azure Blob Storage, and then .create file. And so it says, what is your folder path? Well, if you don't remember, I can switch back over to my Azure Storage Explorer and you can see I have a folder path called Save Files here. So I'm just going to use that one. So minimize. We put that in quotes and say Save Files here, just like that. Then it says, what is the name of the file? Well, this is one of those things I didn't know for a really long time. So add media button 1. Right, when you do this, you see .media, which is the file, but what about the file name? Well, it turns out you can just type in file name. I did not know that, so Brian Dang told me that. So thank you, Brian.
You're welcome, Shane.
And now what we want to do, so we've got both the folder path, the name, and so what is the file, like what is the actual contents? Well, that's just going to be add media button 1, and then that friendly little media. So close the parenthesis for the Azure Blob Storage, close the parenthesis for the set. So if you haven't done this before, what's going to happen is this is going to save the file out to Azure Blob Storage, which is what we need, but it's going to set everything that gets put out there, set that whole record into this variable. So that way I can reference a couple of the fields because we're going to need those in the next step. So this is one of those tricks to do two things at once, right? We're uploading the file and saving all of its output into a variable so we have to be able to have it so we can reference it here in a second. Okay, so now that we've got the file out to Azure Blob Storage, I'm going to do a semicolon. And what I want to do is I want to put this stuff into a collection. So I'm going to say I want to do collect. Oh, you got it. You got to spell collect correctly, though, people. And then we're going to do var receipts. And so what do we want to put in our collection? So in our collection, we're going to need a couple of different things. We're going to want to have probably the file names. I'm going to do these abbreviations because that makes it easier for us when we do a little matching in a bit. So bear with me, but I'm going to use FN for file name. So what is the file name? Well, so for the file name, we know that's just add media button 1 file name again. Cool. And then what I want here is I want a file link. I want a link to the file, right? So FL for file link. And so the link to the file is going to be a combination of two things. So first, we're going to open up Azure Storage Explorer again. And we're going to grab this URL. So Control Copy, right? So down here in the bottom left, the URL. This is the URL to the actual folder that we're in. So I want the file to be, we're going to put that inside of quotes. So that ampersand, right? So concatenate to it, add to the text, and then var Azure file dot path. And so path is the path to the file. So we're going to combine the two of those into one string. And let's see, so that's our file name, that's our file link. I feel like we're doing pretty good here. And we need one more thing. We're going to grab the file ID. So I'm going to do FID, which is weird, right? Vid. And so then that is going to be var Azure file dot ID. And so that's the whole reason that we wanted to return the record, right? Because I needed these two pieces of information into my collection, so I had to kind of put them in a record. In some of the other solutions, I've done the same thing, but I've done it in one fell swoop because I only needed one piece of information. But since I needed two, I broke this out into two separate steps. All right, so I think that looks pretty good to me. So what we're going to do is we have a way to get the file, put it in Azure Blob Storage, put it in a collection. So now we obviously need a gallery to display those. So we're going to insert a gallery. I'm going to pull this little guy way over here somewhere. Oh, it's kind of, right, one of those joyous things where everybody's in the way. So we're just going to close out of all this. I'll put this right here. And so you could do this image gallery if you wanted, but I don't want to show the image, right? Because I might be attaching Excels and PDFs and things like that. So we're not going to do this. What we're going to do is we're going to change the layout to just be a plain title. And so for the, we got to set the items property first, Shane. Duh. It's Monday morning, remember? And so this would be what? Collect. Hey, where's our receipt collection, right? Didn't we just do that? Oh, you guys want me to do is just collect var receipt. This should not be. It should be collect receipts. Come on, people. Yell at me when I make mistakes like that. All right, so then now for our items property, it is collect receipts. Oh, much better. And so then for title 5, this isn't going to be FID. This is going to be file name. So if we say play, add your receipt, we'll add this picture of Chewy. I will add a picture of Greg. There we go. There we go. So we've got this kind of over here. And let's see, I don't want this arrow, so I'm going to get rid of it. Doop. I'm going to make this font a little smaller so you can see the whole file name. So maybe like 12. We'll kind of put it up here in the corner, give it plenty of room. Maybe 12 is a little too small. How about 16? There we go. So something like that. All right. And remember, these file names, the length of these are going to depend on the length of the file name that your users are attaching. So plan accordingly. But so right now I won't attach anything bigger than that just to stay out of trouble. And so what I want to happen here is I want to make it so that when they click on this file that we're actually going to launch it. So I'm going to take the control that we're currently on. I'm going to say on select. We're going to do launch. And then we're going to launch the file link, right? FL. So the idea, we hit play. We click on the file. Womp, womp. All right, I did this on purpose because I knew this was going to happen to you guys. Look up here at the top. My URL is almost right. So that's my right Azure Blob Test Windows. But right here, save files here twice. So this is what happens to people, right? Because if you go back to here, we said, hey, add save files here plus the path. Well, the path includes save files here. So what you really want to do is you want to delete all of this off. So this should just be your root URL. So now if we attach a second file, so change picture. Oh, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I don't like the whole change picture either. So then now if we click on aw shucks, there we go. Aw shucks. All right, so our images are working. And the reason that I want to use launch right here, right? I did this very much on purpose. Because launch, what it's going to do is it doesn't do anything. It just says, hey, browser, go figure out your default way of handling this file and then deal with it. So when I said launch file link and I passed a JPEG, well, the browser knows to show the JPEG. If I had given it an Excel file, it would have downloaded it. If I'd given a PDF file, it would have shown it in the browser, right? Your default browser settings are what controls what happens when you hand a file link like that off to the launch command. And so it'll behave differently on your computer versus your mobile devices. So make sure you're planning accordingly. But launch is really great here because this gives me more flexibility where my user doesn't want to just do images. They want to do Excel files and PDFs and those type of attachments as well. If you just want to do images, then use the image control and just show the little image back. So you have a lot of flexibility here, but I wanted to kind of show you guys the way that I think about that. Also up here, you heard me say, I don't like this says change picture. I don't want this. I don't want to deal with this button and have different modes. So what I will typically do is back here on the button, right? So the add media button on select. After it does all the work I wanted it to do before, I'm going to hit shift enter, and then I'm going to say resets, and then I'm going to say reset add media button 1, and that will set it back to its default settings, which so it'll say the same text. It just, I don't know, it cuts down on the weirdness for me, I think. Also here, a little bonus thing if you haven't seen it yet. Forever, we always had to make sure we didn't end in a semicolon. Microsoft just updated about a week ago that now when you write your formulas, if you have a trailing semicolon like this, it doesn't cause errors like it used to. So, woohoo! Good job, product team. That was a big one. All right. So here we go. So now if we attach a third picture, let's just see what that change did. We'll do my wife. Hello, Nicola. See, so now it just keeps coming back to add your receipt over and over again. So I don't have to mess with it. And you can resize it to get rid of the weird blueness. You can make these look better. This is good enough for right now, mechanically. All right. So we're in great shape here. So now we are storing files in Azure Blob Storage. We're displaying them. If we want to let the users delete them, great thing to do. What I can do is I'm going to insert a icon, and this is bonus. This wasn't in the first 7 versions that I had to delete, so I learned something new between the times I've recorded again. Good for you guys. All right, so if they click on the trash can, I need to delete it from 2 places. One is I need to remove it from the collection. So remove collect receipts, this item. So that will delete this row out of the collection. But I also got to get it out of Blob Storage. I don't want to leave it out there forever either. So I'm going to say, for that, I'm going to say Azure Blob Storage delete file. And it says, well, what's the ID? And that's the reason we went through the effort of storing FID. So like that. So now I can delete the file both from the collection and Azure Blob Storage. So bonus, yay! The last version of the video, I told you to figure it out yourself. And I didn't know how to do it yet. Oops. Anyway, all right. So now I think we need to do is we need to go right to the data source. So to write to the data source, what we're going to do, we're going to kind of go see how we've done this before. So if we click on save, well, what this button did in our previous video is it submits this top form. And then when this form gets submitted, if we click on the actual form up here, form 1, all right, so it's going to submit off to expense master. On success, what we did was we said, okay, well, when we're successful with that, we want a for all expense collection. That's the collection we were showing in the gallery down here. We're going to patch all of those items, create new records for all of those out in our data source. In this case, the data source was SharePoint, but it doesn't matter, right? Your data source here didn't matter. I just used SharePoint for that video. So what we're going to need to do now is we need to go right here to the end of the line. So after we get done patching all the line items, we need to patch all of our receipts. So shift enter. Oh, I promised I pressed shift enter. There we go. And so what we're going to do, though, I thought it'd be fun, is let's store those over in SQL. So we're storing the expense line items in SharePoint, right? And that's over here. You can see there is a expense master. Where is it? Expense master, expense details list. That's where all the SharePoint content or all the line item stuff is getting. We're storing the files in Azure Blob Storage, but I needed to have metadata associated with those files. So I need a table where I store all the references to the file. This is the part that a lot of people get confused by and miss when they're trying to build this for themselves the first time. I know it because I keep fixing these for people. So what we're going to do is I'm going to jump over to SQL. We're having a little fun over here. And so I have a database, right, Azure Blob Storage, and there's a video to that somewhere as well. But so Azure Blob Storage, so I have a database called Branson from when I went off to the North American Collaboration Summit. And so here we're going to make ourselves a new table. And to make a new table, I'm going to copy some code and paste it over here for you. So we're going to say new query. All right, so in the Branson database, we're going to use this code. And once again, I have a video that shows you how to do this, so I'm not going to explain it, or you can just pause and steal that code right now. But that's going to create us a table called receipts again, and it's going to set up a ID column with a primary key of blah, blah, blah. All right, so we'll say execute. Perfect. We'll go over here. We'll say refresh. And this is important because this is like, if I'm building this for customers, literally what I do. I paste this in because I need the table to have a certain base. And then now that we have this thing called receipts again, we're going to say design, curse you Logitech. Okay, so then now what we can do is we can build our own columns. And so when you're doing the solution, these are the columns I think you should all have, right? So like I tell my consultants on the team, you will have all these columns or I will punch you in the nose. I don't say that. I tell them I was sick Chewy on him. But yeah, he's so ferocious. Anyway, these are the columns I want you to all have in your thing. So the first one is going to be the file link. Right? This will be the actual link to the file that we stored. So varchar, and I'm going to make this a pretty big one just in case people use large file names. So 256. You can database size these any way you want, but for me, I make it 256. I'm going to need a file name because I want to know what is the name of the file. And so I think 50 characters is fine for that. So then I'm going to need two columns that you weren't thinking of probably. One is I'm going to call it master ID. This is going to be an integer, and this is the column that is going to connect all the glue, right? If we switch over to SharePoint again for just 1 second. And so if you look over here in expense master, when I added that record, right, Logitech makes me angry. That was record number 54. That was the SharePoint ID of 54. So I grabbed that 54. If you go to expense details, scroll to the bottom, keep scrolling to the bottom. A new camera, its master ID is 54, right? 54, if I scroll all the way back to the top, because they have not locked the headers yet, you can see that I called that column master ID. That's the glue that holds the parent-child relationship together. So when I go to SQL, I want to use that same column name, so I know that that's the glue column, right? And so it's going to be an integer. So if that one had attachments, it would have been 54. And so then finally, this is new for me, but this is going to be something like Azure File ID. And that's going to be an integer also. And the reason that I realized I needed that was because I wanted to give people the ability to delete the file from Azure. And in order to delete the file in Azure, you have to have the file's ID. You can't do it by file name or file path, at least with all the things that they expose to us that we have available. So what I'm going to do, this is brand new. I have not even told my consultants this yet, but we're going to start storing this column as well. So it used to be 4. Hey, consultants on the team, it's now 5. And all you guys, you know before they do. So good job. But so these 5 columns are what you need in order to build and harness this solution and have complete access to these files and some flexibility later. So that looks good. Some say save. And if you're a SQL person and you're being judgy right now, stop it. All right. So then there you go. There are your 5 files, or 5 columns. So we're done with Azure SQL. So we'll minimize that. We'll go back over here to our app. And so then what we need to do is we need to go to View Data Sources. I'm going to add a data source. If I scroll all the way to the bottom of my data sources, somewhere down here I have a SQL Branson. There it is. And then what you're going to see here is there's receipts again. Shoo. I was a little nervous it wasn't going to show up for a second. So say connect. Okay, so now we have access to that. So back to our form. So remember, we patched it off to SharePoint. So now what we want to do is we're going to say for all. Right? And so for all is our way of looping through things. And so what we want to do is for all the receipts in the collection, right? So run this set of code one time for every line in there. So if you have 0 receipts, it'll run 0 times. If you have 7 attachments, it'll run 7 times. That's the beauty of for all. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, for all that I want to patch. What do I want to patch? I'm going to patch receipts again. And with patch, we're going to say I wanted, instead of saying the words, I want to do the defaults function. So the defaults function is a way of telling PowerApps that I want to make a new record out there in that SQL table. So, and then we're just going to do receipts again. So patch receipts again with defaults receipts again, which means make a new record. And so now we're going to set our columns. And we're going to say, all right, file name, you are equal to our friend FN. And see, if I had made both of them file name, then I would have had to do some weird matching stuff that I didn't want to mess with. And you end up having to use rename columns and things like that. So using abbreviated names in the collection and real names in the database make this match portion a lot easier. So that's the file name. I need to then do the file link, right? So what was that? That was, did I do file link? Oh, I definitely did not spell it that way. How about that? And we'll do FL. We need the file ID. Uh-oh. Wait, what did I call it in SQL? Azure file ID. Shoo. File link, file name. So this would be Azure file ID. and that would be FID. And then the fourth column that we need is the master ID. And so for master ID, you can either get that by doing, so the reason we do this in the on successor is you get it right here. So you can grab it this way. Now, but now I found myself, right, let's close this out. Close this, close this. Uh-oh, it's mad about something. Found, oh, I'm storing this as a text, so that's weird. That's all right. We'll say use the value function to change that. Like that. Now what are you mad about? Patch. One of those. Oh, I'm just missing another. There we go. Shoo. Okay. So that gets the line good. So one of the things I don't like here is I'm referencing form1.lastsubmit.id twice. So what I decided to do was I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say set var master ID. Oh, like this. And I'm going to use that. So that'll put that into a variable. And so then I'll just go change this one to var master ID, and then change this right here to var master ID. I don't think this is, I wouldn't call this a required step, but for me, this makes the code read a lot easier, right? So I throw the master ID into a variable, and so then the master ID here and here. I don't know, it made me feel better. I don't think you had to do that, but that's how I would do it. All right, so that, if everything is working correctly, should be absorbing all of our content. So let's do this now. Let's go back over here. Let's say play. Let's create a new expense. We'll just call it test because I'm tired of typing snarky things. Call it wasteful. Testing is wasteful, right? No. We'll make this worth $100. Say save. We'll add a second item. Maybe it's worth $1,000. There you go. So we'll save those. We'll get rid of the blank line. We don't have to, but we did. No, now you see that all these items are still over here. Ugh. So what do I need to do? I need to go back. So let's go back to this, the front screen. I'll do this again. And so here, right, what do? On select, new form, and then we clear collect, expense collection, and then we navigate. Well, you know what we probably should do? We should do a couple things. One is we should hit shift enter here, and hit shift enter here twice. And so then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, I want you to clear collect receipts. So that way, all right, this should never really happen to a real user, but in my testing, I want to make sure every time I press this create new expense button that it resets everything. The other thing that I found in testing that made my life easier is if I always do a reset form in form 1. So that way the form gets blanked out if I had any default values in there, and then it goes. All right, that looks a little better. Once again, these are just things that are all about me. Makes my life easier as a guy who has to build this app and test it and maintain it. Because now if I say create new expense, oh, nice blank screen. So then we'll say test again. And still, oh, this will be hardware apparently. And so this was a no and 100. Like this. And then maybe in 1,000. You guys enjoy watching me type, don't you? Say add your receipt. So then now we could choose a file. Let's grab Chewy says good job again. All right, we added that one. We can add another receipt. Greg's ugly face. And remember, right, if we click on this, you can see that file is in Azure Blob Storage already, right? It's not tied to anything, but we got that file out there because a lot of my customers want to make sure the moment the user attaches a file that we A, take the pain of writing it across the network, but B, we don't lose the file. And so that's the way we decided to do it. You don't have to do it. You could put these files into a collection and not write them to Azure Blob Storage until they submit. If that's what you want to do, it's up to you. All right, so we got our stuff in here. This all looks good. So we're going to say save. All right, after a second or two, it finished. Maybe like 5 seconds. I held my breath the whole time, so I didn't turn purple, so it's okay. So then now if we go and look, we can go over here to view it at expenses. Scroll to the bottom. So test again. So no and maybe. All right, so we have half of it, but now we need to expose the files, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to take this. I'm going to kind of grab this because I know it'll be a pain like that. Boom. So now I'm going to make this a little smaller. We're going to insert another gallery, vertical. And when I put the gallery over here, oh, clicking is hard, people. Really, it's all this garbage on the screen. Go away, stuff. All right. So for my data source, it's going to be receipts again. It's not Azure Blob Storage. It's receipts again. And just for fun, what we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, this image is going to be what? File link. Oh, look at that. Craig sideways and Chewy says, good job. So we have all of the content, but remember, we don't want all of this. Let's get rid of this. What we really want to do is we want to then just say we want to filter this stuff. So filter receipts again, where master ID equals master gallery dot selected dot ID. Right, because the ID of this record over here is what showed up over here, right? You can see that this one was filtered by that same formula. And so then now this one is filtered by that same formula. And I realize you see everything, but if we click on please, please work, we don't see anything here, right? Because there's no images associated with that one. And so then you could write something that said, you know, show some text that says no attachments or something like that, and make that only visible if the pieces were there. And then I think the last thing you might want to do, and this is one of those, like I said, bonus things, but so now we could throw a trash can over here. And so if you wanted to just get rid of that file, right, then you would be able to use the ID, right? You'd say, what would we do? We'd say, remove from receipts again, this item. So that would get rid of the reference in wherever. And then we'd say Azure Blob Storage. Chewy just walked in. He heard us say his name one too many times. Azure File ID. And so that would delete the file from our SQL table. And then that would delete the file from our Azure Blob Storage. So, yes. What do you guys think? Does this feel good? This is real live what I do and build, and the conversations I've had with several different people over the last few weeks. This is the thing you guys need to be building. So the other, I guess, bright side is I can tell you that on my 5th time recording it because of the stupid camera, that the quality is a lot better. I solved a couple. I taught you more things each iteration. So maybe you really want me to get out to like number 10. I don't know what I'd be teaching you at that point. We'd be like launching spaceships to the moon or something. So anyway, I'll quit blabbering. As always, if you need anything, you can reach out to me with PowerApps 911, right? We have some training. We have some new online training that I'm supposed to be working on, but I'm working on this instead. So we got a bunch of new cool stuff coming in that space. And, we got consulting, all those fun things. If you need anything, leave me a comment below. I always respond to those. Sometimes it takes me a week to respond to them. I apologize, but I do respond to all the comments. So I'd love to hear your ideas and feedback, right? Because that's what drives cool videos like this, is people asking for them. So I don't know. I think with all that said, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Hey, it's me again. If you got a second, click the subscribe button. That always keeps me making more videos. Or if you want to work together, need some help getting your Power Apps going, hit me up at PowerApps 911. Always happy to work together. Or finally, if you're really just looking for more videos, that's probably what it is. Check out the Power Apps playlist over here and, enjoy that. All right, thanks and have a great day.